What if I told you that student success begins outside of the classroom and that the more investment from the community, the more successful the student? Well, that's the heartbeat behind Communities in Schools. And the CEO of Communities in Schools of Eastern Pennsylvania, Tim Mulligan, joins us to talk about their strategies to keep our students in school and successful. That's all coming up right here, right now. I'm Sam Chen, and this is Face the Issues. Good evening and welcome to Face the Issues. I'm Sam Chen. Student success begins outside of the classroom. And for so many of us, it's a concept that we understand, and we also understand the idea of a community's investment in student success. And yet when we look at our numbers, we see schools performing at different levels. We see different percentages of students graduating and not completing school. So what's the secret, and how can we as a community better invest in our students? Tim Mulligan is president and CEO of Communities in Schools for Eastern Pennsylvania, and he's my guest tonight. Tim, welcome to Face the Issues, and thank you for joining me.
Sam, it's great to be here. Thanks for the invite to be on Face the Issues.
It's so great to have you here, and before we even get started, you work in education. It has been a crazy time with the pandemic and all that. For anyone in education, how are you and how is your family doing?
Thanks for asking, Sam. We're doing well, like everyone else. A lot of struggles through this pandemic, social isolation and things like that. But thank goodness we're all doing well.
Good.
Thanks.
I'm glad to hear that. And I know that we're going to talk about the work that you do, and it's so appreciated, especially during this time with all the challenges, as if education weren't challenging enough without a pandemic. And so I want to get into this. Let's talk about the problem. Obviously, everybody knows that success begins when we're young, right? And so we have students that come through the school system. The Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education, defines dropping out as 16 to 24-year-olds who do not have a high school diploma and are currently not registered in school. And so they are considered the term that we use, dropouts. And the national dropout rate as of 2019 was 5.1%. And the good news is that was down from 8.3% in 2010. In Pennsylvania, the four-year graduation rate for high school is 86%, which ranks us 15th nationally. And these numbers will vary among genders and races and demographics and things like that. I want to ask you about these numbers because in Pennsylvania, they categorize why people drop out, and the leading cause is other reasons. But beyond others, the number one reason is that students dislike school. That was followed by academic troubles, students who ran away, students who had to work, students with behavioral problems, and then students who had the need for childcare. You've been doing this work for about a decade here in the Lehigh Valley region. What do you see from the students that you work with? Does it match that, or are you seeing something different?
Sam, like all questions, that's a very complex one. Mm-hmm. But let's think about two things. Number one, are students ready for school? And secondly, are schools ready for our students? So the first question, are students ready for school? We ask the question all the time, what is it that keeps a student coming to school ready to learn? And at Communities in Schools, our focus is often on the non-academic barriers. Mm-hmm. But let's think about students who come from family instability, a family where maybe you're not having enough food to eat, a student who doesn't have eyeglasses or dental care. There's so many of these kinds of issues that are really significant factors in student success. And while we might say these don't directly translate into dropout, what they translate into is a student who's not functioning at his or her peak, who's not, ready to put all the energy into algebra when the tooth hurts or when they're not seeing the blackboard clearly. And then there's all kinds of other factors too, Sam. Think about mental health issues. If you went and talked to most superintendents, they would say the number one issue is mental health. Students facing anxiety, students facing social challenges, depression, Sometimes they'll resort to, drugs or alcohol as a way to try to cope. What we try to do at communities and schools is help them to develop those resiliency skills, help them to develop those abilities to overcome issues and challenges. And then the second part of that question, are schools ready for our students? Especially since the time of George Floyd, it's been a social reckoning.
Sure.
We've been asking a lot of questions like, are students of color, getting the same opportunities as our other students, white students? And inevitably, we have to say no. It's a different pathway, and often with additional challenges and systemic barriers that face children. So it's a time when we have to look deeply at some of those structures. Are schools hospitable to people of other cultures, and really creating the kind of welcoming and supportive environment for all students to succeed?
Yeah. And to your point, on the one hand, there are barriers that students face that may not be academic entirely, right?
That's
To your point, none of us like working with a headache. But you can imagine having something that's persistent, like a toothache that you can't fix, or not being able to see the board, to your point, or even broken families. One of the categories in the Pennsylvania categorization was that some students need to work. They have to go to work to help raise their families.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Sam, because we face that all the time. My staff are in, for instance, Allentown schools. Allentown, one of the poorest districts in the state. And we've had many students who that's what they were choosing. They were choosing to drop out of school so that they could make money for their family. And through our interventions and our supports, we tried to help them to say, it can be both. You can get a job, you can help your family, but stay in school because that's the best path for you and for your future success.
Is that the place, the second thing you brought up was the idea that sometimes schools and our structures could also be one of those barriers. Is that a place where schools, as we think to the future, that there could be some kind of program or some kind of solution where schools could cater to students who do need to be working? I teach at a community college. Community colleges are well known for this, of being able to kind of cater to that. Is that something that potentially we could see in the future?
One of the things that this COVID pandemic has brought to life is the need to be flexible, And COVID has made our schools and our school districts have to adjust to a new reality. My hope is that coming through the pandemic, we continue with that spirit of flexibility and create educational opportunities that fit the needs of our students. And what you just described is a huge need for many of our students. In our experience, we've been involved in programs where students are in school half day and they're working half day, and that's part of their educational plan. We need more of those types of flexible, creative, educational alternatives that really work for our students and their families.
I want to ask you about what happens for a student who doesn't finish and drops out. We talk about the idea of a high school diploma. We even say this in the college world. If you go 3 years to school and you don't finish your degree, you have a lot of debt, but you actually don't get any advantage. You can't walk in or put on your resume, have 3/4 of a bachelor's degree.
Right.
With high school, it's much the same. If you don't finish that diploma, so for many of these students, they have to go to work, they have to earn money for their family, but they're actually reducing their long-term earning capacity. Isn't that correct?
Oh, there are, and I know this is a dated study, but a study that I've often quoted was there were 2 Northeastern University researchers who did a study, and it showed that, just by getting a high school diploma, as opposed to dropping out, lifetime earnings would be an additional, $700,000 to $1 million. Wow. That's just high school diploma.
Right.
And we also know that a high school diploma nowadays can't be the end game.
Right.
Because students graduates will continue to be in low-wage jobs and really not moving up the social ladder, but just maintaining. So even at communities and schools, we see graduation as an important step, but there has to be more. There has to be that college and career plan, sometimes a career plan that says we're going to get training and we're going to get a marketable skill so that they can continue to have that kind of living wage and the opportunity for a successful life.
Right. The challenges of not finishing school, is it cyclical at all? Is there a sense in which something like that happens, and because in that example, their earning capacity becomes capped, that it makes it difficult for their children to also break out of that cycle? Do you see that cyclical nature at all?
We do see a lot of cyclical issues. Think about this, Sam. If your parents dropped out of school, had a bad experience of school, they're probably not going to be overly encouraging you to finish school.
Right.
Sometimes they are, but a lot of times they're not. So students are already not getting the positive reinforcement that they need from their home life. And they also don't have that sort of aspirational view of what this high school diploma and possibly college degree, what kind of doors that can open up for them. Sure. So that's something that organizations like ours and our school district partners have to continue to let our students know why. Why is this important? Don't take for granted that everyone knows it's important. Right. You have to tell them why a high school diploma, why that future career plan and college can open doors and get you a job that you really enjoy. Something where you're using your skills and your talents and you like waking up on Monday and going to work.
Sure, yeah, incentivize it for them and
Yes.
put that in front of them.
Yes.
Let me ask you this, and as we round out the segment, we're talking high school age, obviously graduation. I know your organization works with them earlier than high school. How early can you begin to see some of these potential problems coming?
My organization, we enter the picture in kindergarten.
Wow. Okay.
Kindergarten through 12th grade. Okay. There are other organizations, say like Community Services for Children, which are like 0 to 5, addressing the real early childhood issues. But we catch them when they enter into public school in the kindergarten. And I will say this, Sam, the earlier the intervention, the more effective it can be. And when we are working in that kindergarten, elementary space, it's really about helping students to want to come to school, to see that they can enjoy learning, to make learning a positive experience, and to build on success upon success upon success. But again, go back to all those barriers that I shared with you. You have family instability. We have families who maybe are getting evicted from their apartments. And all of a sudden, instead of this elementary school, now they're shifting and a student is now in a new school with a new teacher and having to make new relationships, disruptions, in the educational situation. Health issues, low-income kids are more likely to be obese, to have asthma, to have all kinds of underlying health conditions. We have to be, addressing those kinds of things as well. Kids are more likely to come to school not ready, not having entering kindergarten, knowing their letters and their numbers and their colors, already set back, and sometimes feeling that when they enter into school and their peers have that knowledge. So again, how do we create the pathway of success where students are achieving success and wanting more of that success?
From an early age, too.
From an early age.
We're going to go to the break, but I want to talk about those solutions, specifically the ones that your organization works with. So don't go away, we'll come right back to that. But my guest again here today, Tim Mulligan from Communities and Schools. When we come back, we'll be talking about the solutions that him and his organization are using. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Face the Issues. Tim, thank you again for joining me. We left off you were talking about intervening early. And these are issues, and the issues can be different for every student, but something that the earlier we intervene, the more successful, the better chance we have at helping this student get through their school years, get a high school diploma, and go on from there. Your organization, Communities and Schools, specifically for you here in Eastern Pennsylvania, you have something called the 5 Basics. And these are the basic principles that your organization believes are necessary in helping these students succeed. And those 5 are one-on-one relationships with an adult, with a caring adult specifically, a safe place to learn and grow, a healthy start and a healthy future, marketable skills that can be used upon graduation, and then a chance to give back. Walk us through those 5. Why did you identify these 5? What's so special about these?
Well, Sam, first, Communities and Schools, we're actually a national federation. We're located in 27 states and the District of Columbia. We serve 2,900 schools. We serve 1.7 million kids. So we have a far reach. So here in Pennsylvania, Communities and Schools of Eastern Pennsylvania, these 5 basics were part of our founder's vision. His name is Bill Mulligan. He's still living. Wonderful man with a wonderful vision. And he thought it was really important to start with, what does every child need and deserve? Let's start with that, begin with the end in mind. So the first one, a one-to-one relationship with a caring adult. Our organization is founded on this belief that relationships matter, that relationships are transformative. Some kids, they do have some caring adults in their life, but we become another caring adult, somebody who's there to say, you have what it takes. You have that God-given grace, that gift within you, and it's there. We don't have to put it there. It's there. We're here to help to unlock it, that potential. And it's through the power of that relationship. And it's a relationship of love and care, and when that student knows that you're there for them, wow, anything is possible. Creating a safe place to learn and grow. During the pandemic, isn't that important? That our schools become those safe places, but also a safe relationship, right? So that student can share those important things. A healthy start and a healthy future. And as I shared with you before, making sure that health and mental health, that we're addressing those important needs in the students. A marketable skill, making sure that when a student finishes school, they're ready for that next step. It might be military, it might be going into the workforce, or it might be going on to college. And the last one's a unique one, isn't it? A chance to give back. We're trying to help these students to know that to be fully human is to give back. It's to give what we've been given. Maybe it comes in the form of time, talent, or treasure, but every one of them, to be good citizens and to be good part of the common good that we all share, they need to also give back.
Do you see any of your students come back to that first point and become the mentor years later?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. We do. We have some involved alumni, and I'm so proud of the fact that we have one of our alumni is a psych coordinator.
Oh, wow.
Working in one of our schools today in Allentown, and he's giving back what he received.
That's so great.
But so many of our staff have great stories like this. They don't come from privileged backgrounds. Right. They come from really tough backgrounds, and they can all point to somebody who said, you can do this, you have what it takes. And so they're giving back what they received.
So they come back. And your point earlier, it's cyclical, but in a good way this time.
Yeah, great point.
These 5 basics have paved the way for the methodology that you use at Communities and Schools. You call it the integrated student support model. It's a cyclical model. It's a circle, and it starts off with needs assessment, planning. This makes sense. You have to assess the problem before you can plan for it. When you get to integrated student support, there are 3 tiers that your organization talks about. School-wide services, targeted programs, that all makes sense. There's things the school has to do to make sure their students are in a place to succeed. You talked about that in the first segment, getting rid of some of these barriers. The school can do that. Tier 3 is an individualized support. Why is that so important for education?
Sure, Sam. And again, what we do is evidence-based, which is really important. So it has the evidence to show that what we do actually works. So the Tier 3 supports, the one-to-one supports, take on the form of case management. So we work with an individual student. A student like you, Sam, might get referred to me, the psych coordinator at this school. And Sam has poor academics, behavior issues, and attendance, missing a lot of school.
My report card.
So I might begin to sit down with you, begin to form that relationship with you, and also with your family. I'm checking in with your family. And families have often had negative experiences of, a phone call home is a negative one. We're making positive phone calls home, saying, I'm so excited to be working with your son, Sam. We're going to do everything we can to help him to achieve his goals and to be successful. And so I start to put goals together with you and say, Sam, we're going to try to increase your math grade, and if you come to school every day, we're really gonna celebrate that. 5 days in a row, I'm gonna have donuts for you on Friday. Doing things like that to make a student excited, and we find that that caring approach drives change, and students begin to, improve in those areas, and we measure that. So it's our site coordinator will probably case manage 60 students in a particular school, each one with those unique goals. Sometimes they have social emotional goals or career goals, but usually those top three. And in doing that, they're helping them to become more successful.
And so their goals are theirs alone. This is not something like the class has to do this. This is something that they're working on, and it's just them versus their past self, basically.
That's right. That's right. And again, what we often find in life is we can do anything when we have that coach, that friend, that teacher, that pastor, somebody who's there in our corner, a parent, and they're there for us, and they're supporting us. And that's what that site coordinator is, that trusted adult who is cheering them on and supporting them and helping them. And even if they take a step back, that's okay. That's okay. Maybe you got into a fight today or something. We're going to work on that. We're going to learn from that. We're going to move forward in a positive way.
Understanding the setbacks are learning lessons and walking them through that process.
Exactly.
I want to ask about your success rate. You guys have this all right on your website. 93% graduation rate, 95% move to the next grade. So to your point, starting with kindergarten, this is not just 12 years from now we like to see you graduate, but every year we like to see you move forward. 63% met attendance goals, 81% have met progress in their behavioral goals, 86% have met progress in their academic goals. What do you attribute that success to, and what else are you looking to do to continue to increase those numbers?
Sam, the first thing I just want to say too is all those success numbers that you said, those are not your eager A+ students who we're getting. Right. These are students who are not thriving at all.
Yeah, these are numbers just from the people that you work with, not the whole school.
93% graduation means that these are kids who are in danger of failing and dropping out of school, and we're changing that trajectory. But for all the reasons I shared with you, the strong personal connections, and the helping those students to learn the skills of goal setting. We're really teaching them too resiliency skills, that yes, in life we fail, we always don't come through. But you know what? You can learn from that, you can develop skills so that the next time you get angry, I don't pop off at somebody, and I do the breathing technique that you taught me, and I actually self-regulate and calm myself down. So it's these sorts of lessons that we're teaching kids that will have lifelong positive impact, because they're going to learn how to make better decisions, learn how to manage anger, learn how to set goals and stick to those goals and achieve those goals.
And what great advice that what you're doing, you realize that the diploma and the grades are just it's really the symptom of a successful person, and you're actually going back to those building blocks, and I just think that's great advice.
Yeah.
Tim, thank you for that insight. When we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about you and your role in all of this.
Sure.
And so thank you. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Face the Issues. Tim, thank you again for joining us. Thank you for your time. I want to close out. We always like to get to know our guests a little bit more and get to know you and outside of just the work. What you do, what your organization does, you're investing in the lives of young people, and especially in the lives of young people who don't always have an opportunity. And so I have to ask, you've been doing this for a decade now. What is your why? What gets you up in the morning, and why invest in this world and in this way?
Well, Sam, I can follow my trajectory post-college, and poverty was always something that motivated me. My first job out of college was working with homeless kids in New York City. Following that, my path went into ministry for 20 years. And I did things like campus ministry at Syracuse University and in a church community, and even led a Catholic Charities agency for a couple of years. But what attracted me to communities and schools, the why, was what better way to help people step out of poverty and out of difficult situations than through empowering principles like education. Education is the is the gift that keeps giving. It will continue to open up doors for our young people for the rest of their lives. When I was at Catholic Charities, we had programs for emergency assistance and counseling and things like that, but we continued to see the same people every day.
Sure.
But here, if we can help people to attain that education and really move forward, wow, we're opening up for the next 50 years of their life. It will be changed because of that educational background. So that's really my why. It's faith driven. It's part of who I am. It's really how we transform our community.
Yeah, it's an extension of who you are, and it's the same thing you're teaching all these students. Yeah. Tim, thank you for that. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the work that you do.
Sure. Thanks, Sam.
My guest tonight is Tim Mulligan, and we want to thank him and his organization for the work that they do day in and day out, investing the lives of our students. I want to thank you for tuning in and joining us, and we hope to see you right back here next week. Until then, my name is Sam Chen. On behalf of all of us here at Face the Issues, thank you and good night.